In this video, we finished the second half of the third act movie list. I've only seen one of these movies at all on this list before I did this video, and that would be The Breakfast Club. That's our first movie, and it's the only one I've seen in its entirety on the entire list before starting the list. But seeing as this is the future compared to the footage you're about to see, I can tell you right now, I did not grasp the whole of The Breakfast Club the first time I watched it. I have never seen it again, so when I watch it again, I like it way more, and you're about to see why. And that is The Breakfast Club. I've only seen it once. I think I was pre-teenagery, and I was already late to the party then, and now I realize after watching it again that I didn't grasp any of the main messages. I didn't understand the shipping. I didn't understand anything about, just how, obviously I knew that I've just grown so much since the last time I've seen this movie, and I did not have the depth to even understand, and I have just a much higher value of this movie now than I ever have. Now I'm just like, that went from being that's an okay movie, I don't understand it, I didn't even understand the art, the plot. It's just one of those things where everything was so subtle, if you blink you might miss it, and the things that I did catch, it wasn't that deep for me to understand, why the popular girl ended up with the bad boy. I understood why she didn't choose the jock back then, but I didn't see any of these characters for really who they were. But you know what? That's the point of the movie as well. And in the end, they empathize with each other, as I finally have been able to empathize with them. And I think the main reason why I didn't really understand it back then is because, I'm sorry, they're doing yard work across the street. Please bear with me. But the reason why I think I didn't understand it then is I probably missed the part where he said, this morning, or to paraphrase, he said, this morning, the way that you thought of us is the way that we thought of one another, and we were brainwashed. And once I heard that, it's everything that I remembered about the movie sprang back with already a clear meaning. Before we even went beyond that, as soon as he said that, the movie already had more value from that first time I watched it years ago. So it's the subtle things that if you miss it, you miss everything. Especially I was talking about with the shipping, because when Andy and Allison ended up together the first time I watched that, I was like, "Bleh, I don't like that." Not because of that coupling, but just I missed the subtleties of when he finally let loose and she looked at him and smiled, because she was like, oh, he's crazy like me, but she doesn't, she doesn't think of herself as crazy, but she finally sees their similarity. And it wasn't, that character wouldn't have verbalized that, it would have just been a look and a smile. So they did it right with all the subtleties. I just missed it the first time clearly. And once I saw that, everything that followed was a lot better, including her, her having the makeover. I'm going to go back a little bit. When they were eating lunch, first of all, her lunch before, I looked at her the first time the way that they did. I didn't judge her or dislike her for it, but, I just was just like, that's weird, I wonder why she's doing that. And then this time, like I said, I have a little more depth. I've lived a lot longer. As soon as I saw her recreating that lunch, which I completely forgot about because it didn't have the meaning for me, I saw her creating that lunch, and I was like, that's the lunch of a child, of a person who grew up after having been a child who nobody monitored what she was eating and she had to feed herself. So her parents did give her some luncheon meat and she tossed that out. So somebody did make that for her, but it was very mechanic, and clearly they don't know that she doesn't like that. And since she was a kid, she's been able to, alone enough to toss that meat aside and put cereal and sugar sticks on her sandwich with cheese or mayonnaise and eat that, you know what I mean? So I saw the neglected child as soon as I saw her assemble her sandwich this time. And so getting back to the makeover, which I was like, she didn't need that. The first time I was like, she was gorgeous. Her and Claire, the popular one, they basically had on the same outfit. Hers was just a little baggier and it was black instead of the pinks. But when they did the makeover this time, me having an understanding of the characters a lot better, it was just like, she's finally getting that attention that she deserves, like, or having a moment where she can feel worthy of allowing somebody to hold her for the moment and say, I want to enhance or display the best parts of you. You know what I mean? Like, nobody's ever looked at her and said, these are parts of you that are wonderful and I want them to stand out even more because you deserve to be looked at. And I might cry now because that was just real relatable in a way that this movie was kind of therapy for me. And Brian the Brain, now when I first watched that, he was like one of my favorite characters, and I even see more complexities in that gentleman in the aspect of, first of all, when he was funny, understanding John more. I missed when the bad boy John looked at him with a smile and approval because he had, like, not because he smoked, but because he was funny. Like, he was like, oh, he likes comedy like I do. And then they both began to value each other's intelligence because they have different types of intelligence. John is not stupid. That was never implied. As a matter of fact, he's a fine actor. Such a fine actor that they made his character a fine actor when he displayed what Brian the Brain's house might be like versus what his house is like. Sidetracking. Getting back to the point, though, it was just really cute to see him be like, women can't hold they smoke. And I beg to differ. I don't know if you see my little leaf over here, but anyway. So also the complexities that is Brian. Okay, so you remember the part when everybody was like, on Monday, you know, trying to decide if they would talk to each other in front of their friends. And even though Claire was the one to say it, everyone else was kind of in a silent agreement except for Brian the Brain. And he was the one like, I wouldn't do that. And initially, my first thought when he said that, I was like, I believe that, and I still do. However, not before that was that true. In that moment, though, I was like, the fact that he's saying that right now is kind of big, because the jock type guy, Andy, was the one who bullied his friend, who taped his hairy butt cheeks together, and he lost skin after that, and then he beat him up even after that, like, you know what I mean? And that was not necessarily a friend, but he heard of it from a side of like, oh, you were the one who did that to Larry, you know what I mean? Like, he knows Larry. I'm so sorry about that sound out there. I hope it's not too bad. But so even after that, he was still implying that he would be willing to speak to them on Monday, and not from a place of being happy to have their approval. Now, however, in the beginning of the movie, that was not true, is what I realized before they showed it, but I definitely didn't realize it the first time I watched it. And it was, again, one of those things when they finally did show it, it was so subtle that if you weren't really paying attention, you would have missed it. Like, you notice in the beginning, in the library, the janitor comes in and says, hey, to Brian, hey, Brian, he's you know, ignores him. And once the kind of bad boy sees that, he's like, oh, well, clearly that's something that I can attack him on because he's embarrassed about it. And he's like, oh, is your dad the janitor? Now, that wasn't his dad, but he was on a first name basis with the janitor. And then later, when they are all talking about, are they going to talk on Monday, he said he wouldn't do that, but he did that exact same thing. He was the first and only to actually already have done that with the janitor. And then in the end, he is the one that initiated a hello. He didn't speak first, he waved, is which I noticed. And I had to go back for that because I didn't notice. I thought the janitor spoke first and he responded, but the janitor actually, being the secretly cool character that he was, and I missed that on the first time, but he didn't speak. The janitor didn't speak. But Brian just gave a wave, and he was in front of all of the other people who, like, he literally was in front of them as they were, I only just realized that, like, as they were walking out of their detention, he was in front of the line. And so in front of them, he waved to the janitor, and then the janitor said, have a good day, or have a nice day, Brian, or something like that. And he then said vocally again to infer that he would definitely never not speak to him in front of his friends. He spoke twice more. He said, like, thanks, you two, have a nice day. I don't know. He said twice as much as the gentleman said, and he waved first. And you know what I mean? It was just so many layers to that very subtle moment, and so many emotions. I did not get that the first time because I needed to have a lot more emotional depth and understanding of what I'm experiencing in order to experience this movie to its full extent. And I did. I've got some more notes. John Bender can't catch a break. So our bad boy in this movie is actually a battered child. And not only is that happening in his home life, but then he comes to school and his principal never asks. No adults in this movie, including Awesome Carl, the janitor, no adults asked the children how they were doing or what they needed, and it's proven in the fact that John Bender literally was like backing off, like, I'm not trying to fight, and he definitely got threatened, and the principal wanted to fight him, and the principal never ever got to a point of understanding that character until the janitor spoke to him, and he still didn't really understand him. I don't think. I might have missed it taking notes, but he at least left them alone, is what I was going to say. Oh, and side note, I missed, who gave him another shoe? Who gave John Bender another shoe? The bad boy in our movie he lost his shoe in the gym. And when I first watched that, I was like, I wonder if that was meant to happen, or if it's one of those things that happen on accident and then they just was like, let's leave it in. But then later we come back and he's got somebody else's shoe on, which I love. But I don't know whose shoe it was. I don't know. I had to miss something, right? But anyway, principle just proved that anytime you try to win a conversation with somebody, everybody loses, okay? So think win-win. How can we both win? Clearly this person has a problem and this person has a problem, but they're not each other's problem. They're just antagonizing each other when really the problem is the problem. You know what I mean? The problem is the problem. They're not the problem. They're on two sides of the problem. Yeah, I think I just missed in the beginning of the movie when Carl, like, when he was telling them that he listens to their conversations and he goes through their stuff, it almost paints him up to be another source of antagonism. So when I first watched it, I thought it was random that he was, trying to be the good guy with the principal, and he never really deeply interacted with the students after that, except for to leave them the heck alone, which is apparently what they needed, was just 8 hours meditation. There was some self-reflection, and then when they started to fall asleep, the principal came in and woke them up, and then after that, they reflected as a group. So I heard self-meditation and group reflection. Look at that. And they solved their problems with no adults. And all they did, they thought they were different. They thought they were opposite. And then the more they spoke, they found the similarities in who they were with one another. They seemed like complete opposites. And all of them, in the end, Brian wrote such a good letter. They all got to be the princess, including John Bender. He actually got the biggest happily ever after. He got his diamond earring. He got the girl. He got understood. He's got friends. I'm like, that. He got to be a princess. And so did Allison. She got a makeover. The jock got to be a, what do they call it? What do they call it? I keep forgetting what they called Allison in the beginning. Some kind of crazy. I don't know the words that they use because who cares, whatever. She was great. I thought Allison is definitely, she's my favorite character. Oh, that's sad. But, yeah, I don't know. It was just a great movie. I'm going to go back to my notes because I don't want to get too deep here. Also, Allison has a great memory because she definitely memorized Brian's social security number just because she stole his wallet. Like, what? Okay. But her even telling the, let me see, Andy, the jock kid, he went to go check on her and she told him to go away. And that's when I was just like, oh, she's so sad. Like, you know what I mean? She's never had somebody come check on her and mean it, because that's like a neglected child thing. Like, that's the cause of that. And so it made me appreciate the makeover a lot more this time around, because before I was like, she's beautiful. She doesn't need anybody's approval. She doesn't need anybody to adjust her looks, because her look to me was perfect, okay? But the girl was just like, you know what? I see a beautiful girl, and even though you're not presenting it in the what's traditional way at the time, she was like, I think it's making other people have a hard time seeing you because you're hiding behind your hair and you're hiding behind the big clothes. And she's like, what if we undo all that and let you show your best features? She put her face on display, put her hair back, she put the arms out, honey. I was like, okay, show that skin, show all this skin. But I love that they in the end, like, Andy gave her, like, he had on a tank top, a sweater, and a jacket, and in the end he only had on the tank top and the jacket, and she was wearing his sweater, and it matched her new look. And also she took his letter off his jacket, and it was just that subtle of a, we're going steady now, so you definitely gonna talk to me on Monday. And it was so subtle in a way that they made sure it didn't take away from when John Bender got the earring, because it was another one of those things, like when she took his letter, it was, if you blink you might miss it, but they made sure you heard it with the Velcro. Like, what was that? I had to look up from my notes. And then John Bender, they were like, you're gonna see him get this earring because he gets to be the princess today. And I love it. Yes, because he should, because he's dealt with so much toxic masculinity. Give him his one day to be a princess, okay? Because he was the one that you just needed to destroy the patriarchy for, which is so ironic to me, but that was the point of the movie. It's just like, we all need to be allotted that balance of having to be a jock and be pushed to your limits, but also getting to go crazy and do so and not be judged for not being the toxic masculine, because he had a father that was saying, hey, you need to do more bad, you know what I mean? And that was how his father won his approval back in the day, and that's how he wanted his son to win his approval from his friends. Sorry, this is shaking. Trying a new thing. And he was dang right about getting privilege from athletics. Andy should have went to jail for what he did to Larry. He should have went to jail twice for what he did to Larry. But his sport, like, that doesn't mean he's like a bad kid and doesn't deserve another chance. But based on how laws work, that's assault and battery. And he just got a 1 Saturday detention. Meanwhile, poor John Bender gets a detention for talking back line by line. Every line he speaks, he's in detention for 2 months now because he's been antagonized by his principal. And that's the thing. I'm trying to tell you, I've seen this happen to little black boys and little black girls. And I'm specifically thinking of a young black girl who that happened to. It wasn't me, but very close to her. And this happened to her a lot. She would have a bad day at home or in her personal life, and then she comes into class with a sad face, but the teacher, who is a white woman, sees her as being coming in with an energy that she needs to put her as an antagonist in this moment, and now she's in trouble because she's had a bad day. You see what I mean? So with the whole Andy and John, when the jock kid and the bad boy, so Andy the jock was talking about his father being approving of the things that he did to Larry, and John Bender was like, my father and your father should go bowling sometime, and he's right. And I did kind of like that was such a complicated emotional moment, because it was like, damn, yeah, he's right, because both of their fathers ain't, you know what I mean? But on the other hand, it was like a bonding thing that it was really nice to see. And it didn't last long, but they were able to bounce back, you know what I mean? Because he hurt his feelings, you know what I mean? He had his Andy had his preconceived notions about John, and he had already said, like, he came with the smoke immediately. They both did. But it's like John, from a place of always needing to be defensive, and so he's like, you know, best offense is a good defense, or best defense is a good offense, you know what I mean? And then Andy coming with his being defensive of everyone else because he thinks he needs to be the hero, the big guy, you know what I mean? It's just so toxic masculine. So I'm glad that they got to be the princess, and the girls got to be, and then John got to be the brain. Like, I think he's my favorite character as far as complexities, but as far as my favorite people, it's Allison. It's Allison. But Brian the Brain, I gotta note him, because that's my boy. And when he smoked that draw and he was being funny, like, finally, good for you. Good for you. Because that was the first moment where he wasn't worried about somebody's approval as well. But Allison going to detention because she didn't have anything better to do is definitely a mood, because she was like, that's a way I can go to my favorite library on a Saturday. And like, yeah, a library that she's comfortable with. She went to her school library on a Saturday, pretending that she had detention. The principal didn't even know her name, so why didn't he know that she wasn't supposed to be in there? Clearly she never came to your office if you don't know her. She don't even talk. But he was like, yeah, she probably belongs here. But then she went there and did what? She made use of her time, honey. She sat there and was productive and made her portraiture. And then she had nothing to do after that. But she figured, you know, better have nothing to do with these other people who have nothing to do. And since they're not allowed to talk and she doesn't talk, that's like as good as hanging out with her friends. So that was so great. That was so great. She's my favorite character. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not. Okay. Yeah, their version of detention was far more effective than what the adults had in mind, if I didn't say so already. I love that Claire did not kiss John. The popular girl didn't, or she kissed him, but she didn't let him, like, you know, did she kiss him? I don't even know. But she wasn't letting him, you know, treat her like an easy girl. And you know, she got to feel more confident in being a virgin by the end of the movie. She realized she wasn't alone in that, and she didn't have to feel bad for it. And she realized she didn't like the alternative, which is the way John was treating himself, but more on him being able to be a princess, as she's showing him that he's also worth waiting for, even after having been with so many people. So they both get to wait, in a sense. But there was the subplot of them with their parents, and how her father would tell her to blow off being grounded, which is the sentence her mother gave her. And she was like, she didn't know what to do, because either way, it was just like she was being used as a tool to harm, like for the parents to harm one another. And in the end, they didn't say if she seemed more decided to just go through with being grounded. But now she is seeing John, so I think she might blow it off. But at the same time, he's definitely going to try to tempt her to go further than she wants to go, even though I think that she'll make him realize that they're both worth waiting for. If you're letting me write the rest of the movie in my head, that's how I think it would go. And they would wait, and they would probably quickly get married, though, because, or not get married, but just kind of like run away together to piss her parents off, because she said she would likely move with her brother, you know what I mean, if she had to choose in a divorce. So that's what I kind of would see if the story had continued. But the thing is, the story wasn't about that. The story was about them seeing all of their similarities and realizing that they're all an amalgamation of one another, as we all seem to be. We're all connected. We're all more alike than we are different, so to speak. So the movie wasn't about that decision or that romance, but had it continued, her parents definitely would be divorced, because she and John would have run away after they both hit a certain age. That's my guess. I don't know. Feel free to let me know your opinions. Oh, and I bet you her dad changed her mind once he saw that boy. He was like, oh, no, you're grounded. I know he said that. He pulled off fast after that. But he's worth waiting for too, and he's the one, in my opinion, John, he's the one that I think got the proverbial glass slipper at the end of the movie. But in fact, he got a diamond earring, which is even more of value. Like, it's like value with the times, you know what I mean? These weren't all the kids in the school. These were, the kids that were just who were there on this Saturday, and they all had one thing in common. No adult in their life actually checked on them, asked them if they were okay, asked them what they needed. They used them as trophies. The jock's father wanted him to live out his glory days. Claire's parents wanted to use her to make one another more resentful. The one, Allison, was ignored. Brian was only as valuable as he was intelligent. You see what I mean? I'm trying to remember who I'm forgetting right now. John? Yeah, he was abused. That was simple. So the point of it is that I'm trying to make right now is that the children who were in detention were the children who had the home lives. No matter how they appeared outwardly, they had home lives that were negative on their mental health. So just because you might have one kid that comes in very clean and their home life seems ideal, and then you might have the other kid who seems very disheveled on a regular basis and his does not, and they likely have similar needs that are not being met still in a way. So I think that anybody who is in charge of creating the ways that we therapize children in the public school system, this is a good example of what to do and what not to do, because I think the students in this movie showed us what they need. So my concern is that my favorites of this list are behind me. This one had some occasionally unsettling language, but there were some great arcs within it. Specifically, there was an arc with a woman who wanted to have a baby by herself. It was a group of friends and they'd grown up together, I guess, but she wanted to have a baby by one of her male counterparts, and that was an interesting arc from concept to climax, if you will, because even the one who was chosen, how it came about, was a really cool wrap up. I kind of just want to spoil it for you because I'm not recommending this movie. But that one, I was like, alright. But like I said, this was not a movie for me. I will say in this list, in general, people of color are highly underrepresented, except for in the soundtracks, especially in this song. This song had one song that was not by a black person, and it was the opener and the closer, and it was the same song. And there were no black characters, and there were a lot of songs. So I could be wrong, because I probably wasn't paying attention at a couple of points, but I kept hearing songs that I would be like, oh, that's my jam. Play some, I think they played some Etta James, some Temptations, stuff like that. This movie might age well for me, but outlook is not hopeful. So I'm just gonna kind of like chalk it up to what I'm going to learn in the third act. I am looking forward to reading the third act so that I can see what he's going to talk about. Obviously the third act, which was definitely the most interesting with how they wrapped up that one arc that I mentioned, and also some of the other arcs wrapped up all right. It just, in general, like I wasn't that invested in their storylines to begin with, so it's like maybe it wrapped up well, but I really wasn't into the initial, like I wasn't into it, and then it just wrapped up all right. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. So I will say though that the next movie I just recently found out, like I did a search just to see if I recognized it, which I have not been doing, especially with this half of the list. I don't recognize any of these movies. The last two movies I watched, I've never seen. I didn't know what it was going to be, and then I cut it on. And this next film, because of the title, I mentioned it in the last video that I had never heard of it. The other two, I was like, maybe I've heard of it because I've heard the names, but I didn't know what they were about. But I did take this one and like I did a search just to see if it was something that I'd seen before, and I didn't even stay long enough to see, but I don't think so. But I did see that it's another Tom Hanks film. So somebody clearly has a favorite actor. And I'm looking forward to seeing it because I'm not a fan of Tom Hanks, you know what I mean? So yeah. Oh wait, maybe he's not a fan of Tom Hanks. No, I'm joking. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna read the book and see if even he mentions Tom Hanks being in this list already 3 times. And I think there's a couple other titles that I don't recognize, so who knows if he's going to be in the next bit. But I'm going to go ahead and start the next movie, which is The Road to Perdition. Now that was a movie, okay? Again, there were no black people, but you know what? This time, I was like, good. This is not a world we want to live in. However, this movie was top tier as far as writing, and the acting wasn't bad either. It's Tom Hanks, but I don't know the other guys' names, but I've seen them before, at least one of them. This movie, oh my gosh. So I don't want to spoil anything because it was so good that if you haven't seen it, I want you to be able to see it without me spoiling it. But I'm not saying that I recommend that you watch it because it was very, very high drama, not my type of movie, but I'm here for the writing, and that was top tier. I mean, even down to like the screenplay writer did their thing as far as like imagery. Obviously, eventually, like the rain part was kind of obvious, but it was good that it was because why? Because it kind of, when they utilized it in the it wasn't even the climax. Is the no, it was. Oh, it's hard to explain because what you think. What they do is they do a lot of the deaths visually off screen, but you still get the height of emotion through observing the reactions of those deaths through the characters that you have established empathy for prior to those deaths. So they kind of try to continue, and they still give you very gruesome deaths. They give you bloody, gory shots, but the first death that climaxed, or it's not the first death by far, but it's the one that climaxed the first act and kind of showed you where the movie is going to take us next. That particular death was off screen. We didn't even see it. But before that, we literally saw like a character get shot in the head and die. And the reason that we saw that, you'll come to realize, is not because the deaths of those people are who we're following. We're following the one who is observing that death happening. And it's dramatic that that person had to witness that, in a sense. So obviously it's bad that it happened, but we only know the character who got shot in a very belated way. He's the brother of a character who we only see in one scene, you know what I mean? It's like they start at a funeral of a character we've never met, and then we see their brother, and then we see their brother get shot, and then that's the whole arc for that person who we witnessed get shot in the head. And it has nothing to do with that person, but rather the person who saw it happen. So they had a lot of high gore and drama things happen, but they wanted more to focus on the empathy in the roles of father and son, or pseudo father and pseudo son, and then there were relationships between, brother and then brother and pseudo brother, you know what I mean? So it was very much the father son brother focus, rather than focusing on the arcs of why the deaths are happening, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But what's funny, after all that darkness, what's funny is that in this movie, Tom Hanks, who I forgot to mention, I think Saving Private Ryan is a Disney and DreamWorks picture, is what it said when it was coming on. And then this movie is a DreamWorks picture. Road to Perdition is a DreamWorks film. And in Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks was a military captain, and in this movie, he's a former military captain, or something like that. So I just was like, wow, okay, they're really trying to get us with the, Tom Hanks nostalgia vibes, with the, are you Forrest Gump, are you, whatever your name is from Saving Private Ryan. I don't know why I can't remember that, but, so it ends up being that when we get to some of the more climactic deaths, because obviously they get more and more dramatic, you're still focusing on the father and son bonds right in the midst of that happening, because I can't tell you why without spoiling it, but when things begin to happen and there's, sorry, I'm just hearing the irony as I'm about to say it out loud. So it's raining outside, and then our character comes in with a shower of bullets, you know what I mean? So it's like raining onto... It's so frustrating that I'm only just realizing that it's raining bullets and it's raining outside. But anyway, so as that's happening, it's like, I don't want to tell you because it's so good that if you watch it, I can't spoil it, but I will say there is a figure standing in the rain who is pretty confident that he's not going to get shot, and is allowing the people that work for him to do the shooting while he deals with his emotions of this person being the one to come with the gun and shoot up all his people. Like he's just like dealing with the drama of that. So the guy who came with the gun, we see, you know, this figure coming out of the darkness with the gun, shooting up the people, and then they stop looking at him and focus on the guy that's certain that he's not going to get shot, and him dealing with his emotions. And we see people in his peripheral, like they're like where my hands are on the screen. This is how we see people getting shot in comparison to him standing in the center, just dealing with his emotions. And it's just people are like, ugh, all on the sides, and he's just like feeling the climax of this. And if this were if the climax were about the people getting shot, then the death that follows, I think, would have been more anticlimactic, because even though that's the person that needed to die in order for things to stop, is what they wanted us to believe, they let a lot more people get shot in a more dramatic way before that. So if it were about that, it would have kind of made that scene fall flat. But the way they did it was to let you know that they also know that that would have been anticlimactic. They made that death as off screen as the opening, as the first act climax death, and then they kind of let you see it, because this is a gruesome movie in the end, in like a mirror swing. Like you kind of get to see a glimpse of the after effect of what just happened, so you are sure of what happened and you get those emotions. And then they cut to the actual climax, which is the father-son story arc coming to its climax. The father-son story arc had to end in a way that, again, it's that ironic twist, because we're looking at such a dark movie, and yet we've come to desire such positive bonds and feelings with the father-son, that we have to have a very dark ending with a very positive outcome in order for us to satisfy all of the emotions of this film. So if you don't want to know anymore, I suggest you skip down to the next, and the link is in the description. I mean, not the link, the timestamp is in the description, so you know where the next one starts. I'll give you a second to do that. But the father-son arc ended in a way where, first of all, I hope I put it on the bottom of the screen earlier, that I do now know what perdition means. The definition I had to look up before the movie, and it said that it means hell. So that means that the title of the movie translates to Road to Hell. And I didn't look it up until after, like during the opening credits. I was like, oh yeah, what's perdition mean? And I was like, oh shit, this movie about to be something. So I'm listening to the opening score, seeing the dark, and knowing that I'm about to watch a movie that is trying to make me believe that this is about the road to hell. And then during the movie, and it's very brief, it's not a big deal, but he says that they're going to Perdition, to a place called Perdition, I guess in Chicago. I'm not quite clear on that. And it's near the lake or near the water, and it's supposed to be safe there. And so even though Perdition is supposed to be Road to Hell, when you know nothing about the movie, in the movie, Perdition is supposed to be our safe place. And even though our main protagonist is painted up to be, well, in the opening scene, they're like, was he a good man, or was there any good in him at all? And it's definitely complex, but he appears to be a moral character for the most part. They even put him in a church at one point. And so we have this character painted up as moral, being cornered into doing extremely immoral things, and his understanding, like all of the others that we watch in this movie, they understand that there is no place for them in heaven, is how they talk about that. And then with the son, they were like, well, he can still make it to heaven. And then one of our main antagonists says, well, then you need to make sure that that can happen. And Sorry, that's my next movie. But the point is, the movie ends in a way where what they're referring to is that the son ought not need to pull the trigger. And I will say that he is faced with a moment where he gets the opportunity, unfortunately. He gets several opportunities to hold a gun, but there's one opportunity in which it seems if he does not pull the trigger that he might not make it. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm sure you can kind of assume the ending if you don't want to watch the movie, but if you do want to watch the movie, like, it's good, but it's definitely going to play at your heart in a way that I'm saying if you're watching it, watch it at your own discretion. I'm telling you it's a good movie, but I'm also telling you that it's heart-wrenching enough that I wouldn't ask you to watch it. So there's that. My next movie just finished, but I'm going to go make some breakfast, and then we are going to watch... I'm dancing. I don't even know what this movie is, but I know it's called Minority Report, and I don't want to watch it. So let's see how I feel. Well, for you, you'll see in a few minutes, and I'll let you know later how I feel about that. Also, before I go into the next one, I wanted to mention a foreshadowing of the farmers that he and his son ran across when they were on the run. He said, well, I'm not going to get into all of it in case you do want to watch the movie, but he did say to one of the bankers that he was withdrawing money from, he was like, and I better not see anything in the news about poor farmers having their money stolen. And then, like, later, he's like with farmers, leaving them a financial blessing, and it was just really cool. So when you actually watch it, it'll have way more value than me telling it to you. But I just thought that was really cool how he said that, and then they did the opposite. There was a lot of like imagery in this. Oh, speaking of imagery, there was also, even though the upside down pentagram or upside down star is not evil, it does kind of get used for that in media. And with this being like a road to hell is the imagery that they want to put in your mind with the movie Road to Perdition, they the bad guys, so to speak, in this movie, when he went to go deal with the biggest of the bad guys, the hotel that he was staying in had all these kind of embroidered symbols and pretty things all over the walls, the elevator, I think even the carpet, but don't quote me on that. But when he went into the elevator to face his final boss, so to speak, there was an upside down pentagram, or an upside down star in, like, as a crest within the imagery on the elevator or around the elevator. And it wasn't something that was brought to your conscious attention. Like, they didn't address it in the movie, but it was something that probably holds just as much strength or even more power subconsciously as those things often do. But for me to notice it consciously, it still had me like, oh, I see you. Oh, I see you, screenplay, right? But they did that. And now for real, I'm going to go start Minority Report. Insanely good. I had no idea what that movie was going to be about. Minority Report had nothing to do with race. That was good. There were black people. Some of them even had lines. Wow. Like, I did not expect it to be science fiction. I did not expect it to be based in the future. I had no idea what this movie was going to be about before I started it. With the title, I definitely was like, I don't know if that's going to be for me. But it ended up being like science fiction, futurism. There were, like, my cat is out there trying to talk to me. He's like, how dare you talk and not let me in the room? But anyway, point is, I did not expect this movie to be as gripping as it was. It was like a crime drama based in the future, in like 2054. Hush, boy. No. Anyway, so this movie, oh my gosh, like I'm just so shocked. Like it was so fast moving. Just the language, like just when they were just talking about stuff, it was so fast. I kept having to go back. Normally, I want to speed movies up. Stop. Normally, I have like the desire to speed movies up, and I have to resist that urge throughout this list because a lot of them, especially the two that I didn't really enjoy in this video, they were just like everybody was speaking so slowly. There were such long pauses. And then the previous movie, I think, oh gosh, now they're starting to blend together. Either this movie or the last movie. I'm pretty sure it was Road to Perdition. Yes, that had a lot of scenes where there was no dialogue, but at least they kept visual interest. This movie was extremely visually interesting, like to the point where I didn't even question their weird technological, like at one point. It is at this point that I was about to share just unnecessary spoilers, however light to however grand, and I just rather not because it's a good enough movie that you could just watch it. So enjoy this weird face I'm making as I figure out how to fast forward into a spoiler-free moment of this video. I'm just like, this was definitely one of those ones that has you flying by the seat of your pants. Is that the expression? That doesn't make sense, but I'm thinking that's the expression. But from the opening all the way to the end, it's really fast paced. And then there was a point at which I thought the movie was over. And then I was like, wait, we didn't wrap up this whole short subplot arc. And that's because there's 30 more minutes in the movie. So I was like, okay, now that's how you really do it, because I thought the movie was climaxing and there were still 30 more minutes to go and yet another even greater turning point to be had to conclude this entire movie. And oh my goodness, what an emotional roller coaster though, because just the sad things that had already occurred to the main character, what he experienced prior to this movie. I'm pretty sure is from The Walking Dead. I'm pretty sure that's Alpha from The Walking Dead. So I'm going to have to look into that. But she even had her hair cut the same. And I'm like, I swear that's her. And she's like younger, you know, obviously, because this is older than Alpha's arc in The Walking Dead. But just juicy. This movie was definitely very juicy. One for the books, one that I almost was like, I kind of wish we had more subplots. Like I almost want somebody to pick this movie up as a TV series, because there's so clearly a way that they could have continued this project. Whoa. Sorry about that. Hold on. There could easily be a sequel. It would just have to go a different way, obviously, and there would be some resistance to make it happen, because I don't want to spoil too much, but this is a little bit of a spoiler here. It's a pretty big spoiler, but I think I'll leave this next part in. If you want to go to the next timestamp, please pause now. The empowered beings in this movie who have their gifts, they're not thought of as human beings in the beginning, and then by the end they are thought of and treated as human beings. So with that being the case, if they were to do a sequel, they would have to get these people's opinions now, because they're people and they're giving them rights as such, even though before, you know, they weren't given those same rights, even though they had the same origins as every other human being, you know, being born from a mother, you know what I mean? So anyway, I definitely could see this being picked up some kind of way as a TV series, even if they wanted to start from the beginning of the story, because they had a lot talking about the past, and that could be, you know, a short arc, or they can slow it down and make it a long arc. There's a lot to be interested there. But as far as how they solve crimes in general would be the most captivating part of the show, so they can keep it in this, what was the present in this movie. So I want to kind of not say too much about this movie. It blew my freaking mind though. Oh my gosh. Especially there was one scene, just one scene, where they had a horticultural element. They had a plant element. There was this awesome greenhouse and this lady doing plant splicing and hybridizing, and it's a theme that I've wanted to play with in stories myself. So I'm going to stop there before I've said too much. I need to charge this phone. But the next movie is, I forgot, but my partner reminded me that this is a boxing movie. So I haven't seen it, but I have heard of it. I am aware it's a boxing movie, and that's Cinderella Man. And if I can get through Cinderella Man, hold on. I think there are only 3 more movies on this list, and there are 2 of them boxing movies that are 2 boxing movies left on the list. Because I forgot Rocky, the first movie we did was a boxing movie, and there's 2 more, and I think they're the next 2. Yeah, Cinderella Man and $1 Million Baby. I have not seen either one of them, and as far as I remember, I think both of these were huge award winners when I was in like middle school. So I'm gonna go watch Cinderella Man, and if I have the will, I'm going to push through and watch $1 Million Baby, and then that should be the end of today, which will leave us with the movie Seven, which I believe is about the 7 deadly sins, because I remember as soon as I heard about that theme, I was like, there has to be a movie about that, and I looked it up, and it was 7 deadly sins. But I've never seen it. And I do think there's famous people in that, like Samuel L. Jackson or Bruce Willis, I want to say. I could be just pulling this out of my butt, or I have an amazing memory, because this would have been something I heard years ago. Like, it was about to come on TV. You remember, like, TNT and TBS? Doesn't matter. And then the final movie is going to be Lost in Translation. So I've got 4 movies left, and I think I can finish this tomorrow and still get started heavily editing this footage so that I can stay. I'm not ahead of schedule. I'm not even going to tell that lie. But it will put me in a good enough spot that I can still accomplish my goals, but not without a little sweat because I'm not where I want to be. So, but I'm not worried. So, I'm going to get back into that, and I will see you in a bit. So I just finished Cinderella Man, which was a really, really great movie. You know, I had my small qualms about it, but I won't even address them because the movie overall was such a great film, great story. It was kind of like they took, like, you know, I freaking love Rocky, and I didn't see that coming. And this was kind of like that too, in the boxing aspect way of the underdog story, which, you know, we love an underdog story. But instead of having that lovable romantic arc that we saw with Adrian, it was more of a story of, can he win the Great Depression, so to speak? Like, can he beat the Great Depression? So there was like his Apollo Creed like character, but he also was like, his fighting was a metaphor. You probably seen the movie, but his fighting was a metaphor for, you know, the average person who was struggling in the Great Depression being able to pull themselves out of that with their underdog winnings. But it was a really great story. I don't really have much to say about it. I don't know. I don't have anything to say, and it definitely warrants a long speech, but I kind of just was sitting there so entranced in the story that I even forgot that I was going to have to, like, talk about it after. I was just kind of, like, in this mode of what is going to happen next, because it was a boxing story and then all of a sudden it wasn't for like, oops, sorry, that's my next one. Let's go get that. Anyway, so like I was saying, it was a boxing story for a short while, and then all of a sudden it had almost nothing to do with boxing, or so it seemed. And it kind of was that same, similar second arc style of how in Rocky, when he was preparing to fight Creed, it was just about watching him live his life and go through the in-betweens of having absolutely nothing to do but train and try to make ends meet until the big fight. And it was that, except, you know, add in him having 3 children, him not only being regular poor, but Great Depression poor, and them not having basics like heat and food for 5 people, and him also having a broken hand and having to do menial labor if he could even get the possibility of getting a job. And then there was a character who, he wasn't like Polly really, but he was definitely somebody who, again, I thought when well, it was a much brief thinking of this, but I was like, this man might kill him, and he didn't. And it was very brief that I thought that, because he went from being like, you know, a guy law could lose a lot of money on you, and turns out, similarly to Polly from Rocky, he also has a drinking problem, and that ends up being climactic to his life. But it's just like, oof, I don't want to talk too much about this sub arc, because it ends, the climactic aspect of that sub arc is off screen, because it would have been so dramatic that it would have taken away from the main story. But as a subplot, it still was pretty impactful, even with this character only having a few minutes of screen time. He became like a favorite character, and then someone's source of antagonism, and then he became kind of a martyr for the cause, and further fueling Jimmy Braddock's need to pursue this fight where he could die in the ring. And oof, I mean, just the stakes were really high in this fight. And I'm just kind of glad Rocky came out first. And now I'm wondering if that was like, no, it wouldn't have been loosely based on that. But I'm glad Rocky was there first, so that Cinderella Man can come and be a better movie, but also very similar. So there's nothing taken away from Rocky because it was first, you know what I mean? And it was just so dramatic. I mean, so dramatic. And yet, I don't think it was the most dramatic movie I've seen, nor do I think it's the most dramatic to come, because next is $1 Million Baby. And I was just remembering, like I said, I've never seen this movie, but I was just like, do I remember anything from this movie? Because I remember when it came out, it was a huge deal. I have no idea what it's about, except I think I remember Morgan Freeman, I think, is in this movie. And also, I'm pretty sure I remember a lady in a hospital bed, and I think that's our main character. So I'm just like worried about other possible sub arcs, because clearly this movie was not just a boxing movie, and I feel $1 Million Baby is gonna go in that same fashion of not being completely a boxing movie. So I'm gonna go do a couple chores real quick, and then we are ready to start that movie. So it is 10 a.m. and I decided to call it a night last night. I kept thinking it was Monday yesterday for some reason. Turns out today is Monday. So obviously I've been off. Like, I'm so off. I thought I went out on Saturday night and I went out on Friday night. So that's how long I've been off. So I am definitely going through some personal things as well as I try to go through these, and I'm just realizing that I need to be more forthcoming about that, even on this platform. I don't need to talk about it, but I need to be honest with the fact that I'm going through it, because I am going through these movies and I'm really enjoying them, but I keep having a really hard time focusing on what's happening, even when I really, really like what's happening. And all I keep thinking is that if I can just stay on task, and that does feel great, but to me, like I said, writing is the most important part of this all. And even though I'm doing this to increase my ability to write better, I'm still having like a kind of a rough go of trying to just let myself watch this movie, knowing that I'm going to read this book, knowing that it's going to make my second draft more impactful. So maybe I just need to like focus on my intentions for watching these, and that's what keeps me watching them. But today I just had a hard time even getting to that. So my intent when I cut on this camera was to say that I might have to take a reading break or a writing break, or just a moment of silence, which I intend to do this evening, but I think I need it right now. So I am going to, it's 10 a.m. I've been up since about, I got up at 5:30 the first time, which was 8 hours of sleep because I went to bed early instead of watching the movie. But I decided to sleep a few extra hours because I was like, I could be up at 5:30, but I don't want to watch $1 Million Baby at 5:30, you know what I mean? So, that being said, I allowed myself to go back to sleep. But I'm just sitting here and I had all that sleep and I'm still really tired and having a hard time focusing, so I am just going to sit here for a moment and then I don't know what I'm gonna do. We'll see. I'm gonna try to get back into the movie because as I'm realizing again my reason for doing this, I can almost allow that, but the writing is so important. So like that's all I keep thinking. And so when I remember I'm doing this for the writing, it's no problem. But when I forget for even a second, I'm like, I need to write, so I'm like, I might just write just to let myself do it, because I haven't done it since I've been doing these movies. Well, no, I have, but I only did like 2 days, and I'm used to doing it every single day. So having so many days not doing it, I think is just kind of making me anxious. Like, I don't know what it's like to smoke cigarettes, but I imagine it's kind of like this, trying to quit cold turkey, because I didn't realize like how important writing is to my daily mental health. So I think that's also why I'm being so easily triggered by these movies, because I'm not like I'm being triggered by the movies and I'm not writing about it. So I'm having like dreams, and they're not scary dreams, but I can tell that I'm on edge in the dream, and then it's like if I'm not on edge, I dream about the people who care about me. But if I am on edge, I dream about the people who don't. You know what I mean? Spirit is like, I'm going to show you the energy that's matching what you feel you should expect. And these are kind of like really astral dreams, and I know that because a lot of times I'm waking people up, I can tell. And then I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I must be asleep. Because you're asleep. It's weird. And I don't like talking about it because I have a hard time expressing it. And people who don't get it think it sounds crazy, but when the only way people can believe it is when sometimes I have dreams for other people, and then I reach out to them and I tell them what I dreamt about them, and they're just like, oh my God, I can't believe you know that. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I saw it. Like, maybe I came to you, or you came to me, or you reached out to Spirit, and Spirit reached out to me so that I could reach out to you. That's what it feels like. And so, very few people understand the reality of this. Some people believe it because they've known me since I was a kid. So, like, some relatives believe it. But, like, when I tell other adults who I can't, I mean, it's not like I can't help you experience it because it hasn't occurred, it hasn't been for you. You know what I mean? Once it's for you, you'll understand. But until then, I can't make you understand, and it's not my intention to do so. But recently, like, I don't really want to say too much, but just to give you a clue, like, since we're on the topic of this, the disbelief in me has come really close to home. And that's not even the problem, you know what I mean? I mean, that's a problem, I guess, but I hadn't considered it as such because it wasn't problematic, you know, but it's just been a really tough few days specifically. And also, I think that in combination with not writing is just, I need to just think this what's happening. So I'm gonna do that, and we'll see what happens. I probably need to make some room on my phone again. So I'll just work on some other stuff. I don't know. I'm just gonna take it all off my plate for just like 10 minutes. So if you could excuse this video if it does end up being late. I don't think it'll be late because I'm actually kind of early because anxiety is helping me be on track with the video. I think the other stuff will be good too because I have a plan for that. So I'm not worried. But I have a long-term goal and I want to stay on track with that. But I've made things a little more out of order by reading first, but it felt necessary, so I'm glad I did it. And now I'm going to do draft 2, which I want to have started by now. So I guess I'm kind of on track, but I needed to do like 2 weeks of research, which I think I have pushed out of the way for like reading and making videos. So, but I think I can catch up or at least stay on track with my ultimate deadline dates, you know? Okay, all right. Later. Okay, so The Office definitely kind of spoiled that for me, but you know what? It's okay. I still enjoyed it. But I was like, Makushla, that sounds familiar. I've heard that from, oh yeah, The Office. And then I remembered what Pam said immediately after that. So I'm not going to say it for you. I got some nerve talking about some spoilers, but at least I warned you, you know. So yeah, that was Million Dollar Baby. So yeah, that was Million Dollar Baby. Oh my gosh. Once I was finally able to get back into it, that's when all the kind of like drama started happening, because I think at one point I was like, there's still an hour left. But I'm getting ready for 7 now, but so many cool things. There were so many actors. Anthony Mackie was in there, and his character just disappeared after he lost that fight. Like, I guess his arc was just over. Even the other kid, what's his name? James Jay Bruchel was in there. And his character also just disappeared for a long ass time. And the first time when he disappeared, I was like, where is he? And then there he was again. And then the second time I was like, so I guess his part's over. And then he just came back, and that was the end of that arc. But good for him. I liked that character. I liked all of everything that happened within the actual gym that they were training in was my favorite part of the movie. I learned a lot personally. I think with this list, I've learned how to box between Rocky and what's the other one? Cinderella Man and $1 Million Baby. These were some really good movies. Apparently, I was like, boxing is so horrible, but I guess that's like a thing that people like. I like it, I guess. I don't like the people getting hit and injured part. Like, if they could find a way to make it not hurt, like some, was it sock and boppers? I would watch that. I would watch that. Maybe I don't know. Anyway, let me see. Morgan Freeman. Yeah, so they left a lot of open endings, which obviously with this being for the book the third act, this being the third act movie list, he's probably going to dive back into talking why we couldn't get that close ending with the arc with his daughter. I can't wait to get into this book even more because, like I said, it's all about movies that have weird third acts and how the first act still proves that's the way that it had to end, sort of. So, oh gosh, I don't know. I'm really excited to read this book. I'm really tired in general, but these movies are incredible, and I'm so excited for 7 because the things that I'm remembering are so small and they're from like years ago, and yet I'm nailing it. Like, I can't think of this actress's name in this movie, and it's been driving me crazy because literally I had a teacher. She didn't look that much like her, but she did kind of look like her. But my mom would just be like, she looks so much like her. And she would say it every time. And I cannot think of the actress's name. I could just look it up. But what's the fun in that? I'm trying to make my brain just exercise and grow. And I keep thinking Keira Knightley, but I don't think that's her. It probably is Keira Knightley. But no, I don't think it's Keira Knightley. I can't think of her name, but it's not what I'm trying to do with my brain right now. So, yeah, things that I remembered before I saw the movie. Like I said, I just remember there was an actress, I don't remember her name, but she was our main protagonist. Her doing the monologue from bed, and just this movie, oh my gosh, I didn't know, like, the stuff with her parents. I didn't know, like, her mom's character, her sister's character. Even the sister and the mom were actresses I've seen before. I know the sister, I don't know her name, but I think it's the girl from Garfunkel and Oates, the blonde one from there. If it's the girl from Garfunkel and Oates, that's pretty cool. Because she would have been kind of pretty young during this movie. So they really just made sure they filled this movie up with famous faces. I don't really know. I don't really know what to say. Kind of lost my steam this week, I guess. Like I was saying, I definitely think I learned how to box this week. Cinderella Man, oh, it was so good. Like, I just been thinking about it. That's the thing. When I go to sleep and I wake up the next day, all these movies are like even more processed, and I love them even more. So I'm just like, I keep thinking about Cinderella Man, and I really want to watch that last fight part again where I could tell, I was like, he's realizing that dude is keeping his body way open even though he's literally murdering people with his punch. So, and he didn't even recalibrate. He was still going to come hit him with that same force with no remorse. Ooh, bars. But, so yeah, anyway, he realized he kept that body open. He made sure he survived that fight. And, yeah, but but $1 Million Baby, oh, just so good. Just so good. Makushla. But yeah. What about it? I don't know. I just really feel like I need a boxing gym in my house now. Like, after watching this, she got her body into insane shape. She went from She went from like wrapping up old steaks of customers who had left their plates unclean, yeah, unfinished, to literally her mom coming to take her money, but still never having any pride in her as a fighter. Hated what she did, and then hated on her because she lost. Like, it's too much. It's too much. How about we just support our children no matter what they want to do? Because if they live their dreams and goals, then, everybody would be happy. Yeah, that's how that works. Yeah, so I'm gonna go and watch Seven, and I will see you guys. Oh, that's what I wanted to say. What I think I remember about this movie, like I said, I think I remember like an old USA or TNT commercial where there was like maybe Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson. Is that Unbreakable? Oh gosh, that's the thing. It's either Seven or Unbreakable, which I haven't seen either of those. And Unbreakable might not be the name, but I think that's the name of the prequel to Split, I think is the name of the movie. I really like that movie. I can't think of that actor's name, but he played Professor X on X-Men, and like young Professor X on X-Men First Class and those trilogies or whatever. But anyway, great actor, great movie, amazing range. And is he Tobey Maguire? Probably not. I don't think he is, no. So I'm gonna go watch Seven. I have no idea what it is, but I believe this is about the seven deadly sins, and I'm very interested in that on screen because I haven't really seen that too much outside of like old episodes of Charmed. So yeah. Wow. Seven. Wow. Just wow. Um Not the cast that I named at all. Yes, I definitely had to be talking about Unbreakable, maybe, hopefully, probably. But it definitely was star-studded. That is not how I saw that going. Just a heads up, I'm about to vaguely spoil the whole movie. Like, I knew as soon as I saw the photographer, I was like, okay, sorry, first of all, spoiler alert. Huge spoilers, but as soon as I saw the photographer, I was like, that's the guy. And in that same moment, I was like, okay, clearly he's gonna be Wrath. But even figuring that out, I had no idea that it was gonna happen the way that it happened. Oh my gosh. I'm trying not to spoil the whole movie, but like, also Envy. I knew it was going to be something cheeky. Didn't catch that. Mm. But the only reason I thought it was going to be something interesting with Envy is because I thought they were going mostly in alphabetical order, and then they did Sloth third, so I really didn't see that coming. That was creepy. The whole thing was creepy. It was as creepy as I thought, but for some reason, I don't know, when I first heard of that movie, I thought it was going to be like a fantasy, like a dark fantasy kind of thing. And if it kind of like maybe a low, no, that was just, no, that was just dark. It was a good movie though. I'm trying to like, okay, so like I said, he says that the first and final scenes connect. So I kind of want to watch that opening scene again just to see why it had to end that way. Like, why is it that that character could not have chosen to make a different choice in that last moment? He decided exactly. I'm spoiling it up, huh? So I just thought he would, like, there's supposed to be, likely there's going to be a point in the third act book where he tells us why there was no way that character was going to do anything other than exactly what was planned for him. Mm, 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 mm. Mm. That dude definitely got him too. I'm just reeling back because if he didn't go with him, like if he just would have turned down the deal, then the other body definitely may or may not have been found, but it would have been discovered that that was the victim. And also, the final victim would have never existed. So, in not going, those bodies would not have been found. So, he definitely was like playing top tier chess with them. But I just wish if he had even gone up against Sherlock Holmes, he wouldn't have had a chance. That's all I'm going to say. I don't know. I only have one more movie though, and that's Lost in Translation. And now that I think about it, is that another Tom Hanks movie? I don't know. I'm definitely about to find out. I'm looking forward to it. I just really can't believe that this movie was like, wow. I just kept thinking, there's so many good directors here too. Like Ron Howard did Cinderella Man, and Steven Spielberg did Minority Report, and it's so on point with both of their brands. Like, what do I know? You know what I mean? It just seems like it fits. But I definitely need to make some more room on this phone before we do the next movie. But I can't wait to get into this book deeply because I already highly value most of the movies on this list. And that's what makes me kind of want to go back and watch that one that I really wasn't feeling again. I'm like, maybe it was just because I wasn't having the best of days. But I really just also didn't relate with the two movies that I didn't like. Like the one that I don't even want to talk about it. I'm just going to leave it where it was. But that whole, any sentimental stuff missed me. I was like, am I supposed to be empathetic with these characters? Because it wasn't like I didn't care at all, but it was just like they painted these characters up to be people who I definitely wouldn't get along with anyway. Like, was that the point? Sometimes I miss like subtleties like that. Therein lies being neurodivergent. It's just like sarcasm. Am I missing something? Is this irony? Like, I don't know. But I didn't like two movies, but one I really didn't like, and the other one I just kind of didn't like. But they both ended up being written in a way that I think it'll still be useful to read about. Like, I would not have finished that one. Like, that's the movie, He Who Must Not Be Named, is how I'm thinking of that movie, because I'm not even trying to give it any time. But I do want to, like, I would have stopped watching it if it wasn't for the fact that I'm going to read about it. So I'm going to allow that to happen. And I don't think I would be friends with any of these authors on the list that Will Smith provided anyway, but that doesn't mean that they don't have valuable information. So this is my third book out of at least four, because there's one that I already bought, and there's like kind of a companion to that written by a different author that I don't own, but I would like to read. But I do have other books that I found myself that also are supposed to be on writing. So looking forward to that, like just in general. But the other ones I'm going to be reading in the future, probably different drafts or different stories that I'm working on. So yeah, but 7. That movie. Morgan Freeman also. That's 2 in a row of Morgan Freeman. A lot of DreamWorks movies that are not like your typical Shrek type. You know what I mean? These are not kid-friendly movies on this list. Lost in Translation, I feel like, yeah, is definitely another award winner. Why do I know that? I think a lot of these I was just like in drama the year these came out, and I just had to memorize the titles but didn't actually have to watch any of the movies. So that almost completes a story arc in my own life, I guess. So I'm going to go make some room on this phone as my last movie downloads. And I am so excited that we have made it to the end of this list. I can't believe it if you watched both of these videos either. So if you did, you're going to have to let me know in the comments section. I don't care how old it is. I want to see. I want to know. Because the odds of me leaving an old video up also with my anxiety, like, oh, that thing I did 3 years ago, I gotta go bury that. Like, no, no, no. It just means you're changing, evolving, growth, etc., whatever. So yeah, Lost in Translation. I finally get to see what that's all about. Yeah. I bet it's going to be another banger since it's the last one on the list. So that's why I'm so excited. I'm just like, it's got to be good. Like, this list, even with all that I didn't like, I still liked so much more than I didn't like. You know what I mean? As far as movies, as far as topics, everything. So, I'm trying to stay true to the essence of this video, but really, there is no essence to this video except for to prepare us to read the book and then have video documented proof of that journey of me watching these movies so that I can talk about it in tandem with the book later. So if you did finish both of these videos and you want to continue on and see all of this, hopefully soon after this video I have posted the third act book review. I hope so. So that is my hope. I normally don't like to talk about my goals in advance. If I change my mind, I change my mind, but I think I'm pretty steadfast that I'm going to go ahead and finish and read this book next, seeing as I watched all 17 of these movies. And then after that, I'm going to go forward with my second draft, because I've also been completing my notes, so I should be done with going over everything I need to do before my second draft very soon. But my videos, their topics will probably be on something else that still feeds into writing but doesn't necessarily take up as much time as these movies, because I'm devoting like this might be like my 6th or 7th day. 7. Oh no. My dog is just like right outside the door. I'm sorry. But I think this is my 7th day working on these movies in totality. And like I said, I don't really watch a lot of movies. And I just find myself like trying to make sure I'm stretching and moving. And then keep watching the movie, making sure I'm paying attention. But they're so good. I'm so glad I did this. I might look for another movie list for the future, but I did find another book list for the future because this movie actually had a book list. So I don't know if I'm doing that anytime soon, but I definitely was watching Morgan Freeman in the library reading these books like, yes, read! There's so many of these movies, like 3 of these movies from this week were like, the kid in Road to Perdition was like, I'd rather be reading a book. And then somebody else mentioned reading, like one of the characters being a big reader. And then Morgan Freeman, oh, yeah, no, I don't remember what movie it was, but one guy says to another, like, do you even read or something like that? Have you ever read a book? Is what he said. What movie was that? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. They're definitely blurring together. I'm like, I gotta look at the list again. But anyway, this has just been so dope, and I'm so running out of space. Have you, I don't know, I'm thinking it was Cinderella Man, but I really don't know. This has just been a really fun experience, and because I was so, like, I'm so grateful to have finished this, and I like the kind of listy vibes, I might go and do the list from the 7 movie. I'm definitely out of room now, so peace. I didn't want to show this butt because it has a crack in it. Not a Tom Hanks movie, first of all. It was Bill Murray. You probably knew that. But I think that was Scarlett Johansson, like a younger ScarJo, I'm not sure. But this is the second movie where the old guy gets to kiss the younger girl, the significantly younger girl. So that's Million Dollar Baby, and that's this movie, Lost in Translation. And it's kind of creepy, but at the same time, I I can see the value of that arc in a well done story, and I liked it for Million Dollar Baby, kind of. This one, not really, but like it was still well done. This movie was super racially insensitive. Probably got canceled in the last year or two, but I wouldn't know. Um, but it was a well done movie. I won't say I liked it, but it was a well done movie. Um, Let me see. It was kind of like a comedy. So it was one of the funnier of the films on the list. I'm really grateful that it is the last one. I'm so tired. Um, there was a lot that I didn't like about this movie, but the message of, how the relationships turn out after people are married and have children. Yeah, a lot of this list was just like traumatic and stressful. And this one, even though it was less dramatic, it was still stressful. And watching him, he and his wife fall apart, even though neither one of them were the bad guy, you know what I mean? It was just like life just kind of made things harder than any couple should have to go through, but it's the normal occurrences. And I just kind of feel like it wouldn't be normal if it wasn't for how our societal makeup is. Like, that woman has to get up at the butt crack of dawn to get her kids ready for the day, and that wouldn't necessarily be the case if, say, they lived on a farm. Like, maybe they would have to get up really early, but then the kids wouldn't be going to school, and she wouldn't be going to a 9 to 5 and then having to come home and do stuff. They'd all be working on the farm, and doing stuff together. I don't know. I just feel like things would be different if we lived more simply. But also, like, obviously, children, in that case, like in the case of normal society, how it is right now, makes it harder. But on a farm, it's like, yeah, it can make it harder, but in a few years, that's more hands on the farm. So it's like, they're fine. It's cool. I don't know. I just feel like life didn't have to be this complicated, but yes, it has become to the point where it's almost hard for relationships to get better and better. Everybody's just waiting for that empty nest where they can rekindle their relationship, and by then it's like you've already been married to, someone who you don't really know for a long time. Like, I have a friend who is significantly older than me, and I don't want to like get into all her business, but they just had a normal life and marriage where they both worked until they got to 30 years and retired, and their children went off to college, and finally they didn't have to one work in the day and one work in the night, and they never see each other. So after 30 years of that, it was just like, oh, well, who am I married to? You know what I mean? And it wasn't bad. Like, she never said it like it was a bad thing. It was like she was like dating a new person, and they were still excited to. So that's the good news in her case. Like, she was actually like, I get to go on dates with this man who I've been attracted to for all these years but never really gotten to be with. And so that's kind of like a sad beautiful. But a lot of people don't have that, because how one of them would be parent in the day and work at night, and the other would be vice versa. A lot of people are trying to figure that out at the same time, and they both have to, I mean, either way, both of these adults have to deal with all of these stresses together while not really knowing each other or getting to stick around one another. I don't know, it's just like the societal makeup, the way we do things, it's just not right anymore. like it lost its heart. Perhaps it gained security, of things like child labor laws, because, there were extreme, I don't want, I'm really tangenting here, but I'm just saying, like, it seems as if the normal way to do things now is to, it kind of just takes from the heart of why you chose to be a family with this person in the first place. So now everybody seems to be doing it for the kids, just hanging in there for the kids, and maybe eventually they can choose themselves. And I think that's why millennials and, I think I'm a millennial. Yeah, people my age are just like, not really having kids right now. Because you don't really want to have to choose. We watched our parents choose. They did what they were told was the best way to do things, and it didn't pan out. A lot of people don't even make it to retirement, you know what I mean? So I think the millennials are like, well, let's try something different, because that's all we have is to give our best effort doing what we like to do. Because if we give our best effort doing what we don't want to do, we still might lose. So we might as well give our best effort doing what we like and hope to win. So that's why I'm doing this. And I intend to achieve my goals, because maybe it'll inspire someone else to do the same, whether you're a writer or not, And even if I turn around tomorrow and decide that I want to do something else, I don't think that's the case. I really love writing, but there's a lot of things that I want to do. But there's a lot of awesome things that I want to do. So it's just like, it's okay. Like, we're finding ourselves, we're doing it, but you never want to wonder what if, We already talked about regrets with Good Will Hunting, but I don't know. I don't think we have to choose between our chosen family and our chosen careers like they made it seem in this movie. And he still didn't get to really do what he wanted. He'd rather have been acting in a play, but he was just making money. He was like, I get to make $2 million, advertising this drink in Japan. But what I'd rather be doing is doing a play. Like, I could be doing theater right now, is what he said. So here he is, he's got the money, but he's not doing what he loves. So it's like, some people do secure things for money, and then they can still fail. And then some people do start off doing what they love, and then for more money do another job, and even if they're a success, they still wish they were doing what they love. So what I'm hearing is that we should all be doing what we love. And I have to be honest with you, when you do what you love, there are a lot of people who are not doing what they love who are going to be very hard on you. They're going to be talking about you to your face and behind your back. And I have experienced both in this year and on a regular basis. However, it hasn't stopped me yet, because there's nothing that is not worth it for me to succeed. You know what I mean? Like, if it takes losing people who I thought were anchors in my life to achieve what I want to achieve by doing what I love, it's worth it. Like, for me, finishing my story means I'll finally get to put out something, to express a thought to its fullest extent and share that with others and finally be understood, because I misunderstood quite a lot. And I've learned with my personality types that I am a type that's going to often be misunderstood. And a lot of times I realize people don't take the time to get to know you. And even if they do, they still have preconceived notions that have nothing to do with you. And you can be as real and as genuine as humanly possible. But if they're not used to real and genuine, they're going to think of you as less than anyway. You know what I mean? So it's like, no matter what you do, they're going to judge you. They're going to dislike you. But it has nothing to do with you. And they're going to hate you for being happy, but in the end, it only blocks them from being happy. So don't let it block you too. You're the only one who can decide to push through anyway. Has nothing to do with Lost in Translation. But my phone is dying, unfortunately. Let's see. Yeah, I have 5%. So I just want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you so much. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe, I guess. You probably don't want to share this one. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so just to wrap up the previous movie, sorry, I'm on one of those bouncy chairs. So just to wrap up the previous movie, which was Lost in Translation, I did kind of like, please excuse any other background noises. I'm not home alone. My dog's in the hallway, and I think my window's open. So, but yeah, so yeah, every time they had to actually translate, it just went horrifically funny. It was great. But there was one moment where he was doing his fashion shoot because Bill Murray in this played a gentleman who advertised for a whiskey brand, I think. And so the photographer was a very passionate man, and he was speaking fluent Japanese, I guess. He was speaking in Japanese only, and then the translator was, translating to English. But as we know, in translation, there's no one-to-one, this is how you say it in English, this is how you say it in Japanese. They're all loose translations. Everything is kind of like an estimate rather than an exact equal. So he would go on and on and on, and just, you can hear him saying what sounded like the word passion, and then when the woman would translate in English, she would say just like one or two words, or maybe a sentence or two, and that was hilarious. And then I think they sent him a woman at one point to entertain him, and oh my goodness, it was very clear that, they were just like, anybody who speaks English, and her English wasn't great, but she was very funny. Like, I kind of want to see if, like, she does other stuff, because she really sold that role. There was, I swear, I think there was a young Scarlett Johansson. I need to look that up, but I'm not really worried about it. I also need to know how old she was, because y'all know how Hollywood do. But that's what made it creepy, because otherwise the old man, young woman, or vice versa trope, I don't hate it. I have no problem against it, except for, like, in Hollywood, it just, there's always going to be that rub you the wrong way. Like, is there an ulterior motive here? But I even, like, I just understand that in general. Like, I always wonder, I was like, I would definitely date, like, an old man. Like, I mean, it's just not about that, you know what I mean? But, especially if there's an intellectual connection, which, for me, is, like, the whole relationship. So, so yeah, this was really fun. So I kind of just want to go again and ponder over the movies. So between Rocky, Cinderella Man, and Million Dollar Baby, I definitely learned enough that if I practiced their routines for 4 years, I would be a dope boxer, or at least have that sick body that, I still can't remember that actress's name, but that sick body that she ended up having for the movie, like during the training scenes. I'm like, I can do that, especially with boxing. That's like my preferred exercise method, is boxing and kickboxing. I've just never been trained in it, always wanted to, and the more I live, the more I'm like, that seems inevitable, that I'm either gonna train in boxing, or I'm gonna just have like an in-home boxing gym of some sorts, you know what I mean? Minority Report was such dope sci-fi that I definitely want to watch that again. A lot of these movies I want to watch again, but that one, oh man, like Seven had like the dopest opening. As far as even what I put in the video, I think theirs was the coolest, the most creative intro. because as you saw, most of them were just black screen, white lettering. But, you know, we got two creative ones in this one, and then we got some more creative, much more creative ones in the first one as far as like overall, you know. So, but they probably didn't expect anybody to try to utilize that opening again later in this fashion either. Gladiator really still sticks out for me as one that I'm just glad I watched it, even though it was super traumatizing. Like, as far as being a writer goes, I think it was one of those things that as soon as you watch the opening, you're like, oh snap, oh snap. I think I know how this could end. They give you two possibilities as to the ending in the opening with this character. And by the end, you're like, okay, that's the only way this could have gone. And it was almost, to me, a little similar to Road to Perdition in that the focus was on the generation after more so than the present circumstance of things. It was about a character who was like, you know what? If we can do something better for the next generation, then my life served its purpose, and at very least. I am spoiling movies even in the outro. This is terrible. Yeah, The Big Chill, I really didn't get it. I wanted to get it. I'm like, maybe I wasn't in the right headspace for it. I could have done better for that. Because after watching that movie that shall not be named, I should just say it, but I don't think I want to. But the movie Diner, once I watched that, I think I was just like, yeah, I don't even want to watch movies anymore. And that's another thing. When I finished the second to the last movie, which was Seven, I was like, I could see myself watching a movie a week. This is actually kind of nice, kind of fun. And then when I get to Lost in Translation, I'm just like, you know what? I could see myself never watching another movie again. So, and it wasn't like Lost in Translation was bad, because it wasn't. It was like a well done movie that is not a favorite of mine, but I definitely don't dislike it. You know what I mean? It's just, it was okay. It was all right. It was well done. It's just not for me. My favorite of the boxing movies, my favorite concept is probably Million Dollar Baby, just because we got the female boxer and we got a lot of like famous faces of all races, which bars, but it was just really cool to see that. And it was a really good story, but I still think, man, the boxing movies were all top tier for real. I think Cinderella Man was the best of them. I want to watch all of them again. I think Rocky would be like my favorite as far as feel good, even though a lot of it didn't feel great. How everything turned out ended up being like, this is my favorite. Cinderella Man, oh man, it was so good. I feel like if you liked Rocky, you're gonna like Cinderella Man, because it's very similar, except it seems he had a further way up to go. Like, he, as far as people digging themselves out of a hole, this gentleman had even further way to dig himself out of a hole than Rocky did. But I don't know, man. It was just, they're very comparable. So if you've seen one and not the other, I would ask you to watch the other, just because Rocky really surprised me. I didn't expect to like them. Like, I thought it was just going to be like, I'm thinking about Friends and the character Joey from Friends, and I'm pretty sure him and Chandler really liked Rocky, and it's not like they can't like really good movies. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that the character Joey is such a caricature, and this type of caricature is often painted up as really liking the movie Rocky. And since I don't fit said caricature, I was like, maybe this movie would not even be relatable to me. And I did not even bother, even though I watch Friends. I love Joey. Chandler's my favorite character. Like, Phoebe and Chandler are probably tied for first, but sometimes it's Chandler because he's just so funny. But Phoebe is so intelligent. She's smarter than that whole show. You know what I mean? And they write her that way. Sometimes you got to write characters that are smarter than yourself, and Phoebe is a fine example of that. So, neither here nor there. I'm getting off track, but I just want to say that Cinderella Man is like this fine, awarded masterpiece film, and it's just whatever. It's kind of like how I talked about Good Will Hunting in the previous video, and how they tried to pit these two waspy type men up as opposites, but in the end they both are afforded similar opportunities, and they actually, or even the Breakfast Club in this film, I mean in this video, I talked about how, you know, I mean the obvious, which is that they realized how similar they are, even though they have been made to believe they're so different. And I feel like the movie Rocky and the movie Cinderella Man are similar in that aspect, where one you people might consider an art film and the other one a sports film, but they're both kind of both, you know what I mean? They both obviously have boxing, so that's their obvious similarity, but just even everything surrounding that, even though it's like different extremes, it's very, very similar. Like, even the man versus state kind of energy that they've had. I feel like it's obvious, it's far more obvious when it comes to Cinderella Man, but Rocky did have that kind of same thing when it came to, they both, like it both being showed more through their peers at work. Like, if you compare the character Michael to the character Polly in Rocky. So it's just like they just focused on, like they leaned into different sub-arcs, but you can imagine that these characters even have more similarities than on screen. I am talking so much about these two movies, but the boxing movies really did it for me. That's all I'm going to say. But Seven was probably my favorite on the whole list, I think. My favorite character on the list is the kid Sam from Witness, because he's adorable and he did not need to go through all of that. And if you have not seen Witness, I'm like, even if you don't watch the whole movie, if you could just watch that, if you could just watch till that opening climax and that first major gap opens, oh, and it's not what you expect, you can probably guess it. Honestly, you could probably guess it, but it was just so well done in a way that you almost followed a red herring of clues that made you, like, there were so many other things to keep your interest that you didn't have time to even consider this possibly obvious gap opening. The writer did a good job in being like, you know what, this might be too obvious, so I'm gonna pull your attention to this instead. Witness had a good opening. If you just want to watch that first act, I think that's everything. Everything else after it was great, don't get me wrong, but like if you want to get your heart pumping, ooh, ooh, it was so good when that gap opened up, so I'm not going to say it, but how it ended, like as far as imagery went, I didn't love it, but as far as story writing goes, I freaking was over the moon for it. So if you want to finish watching it as a writer, I'm like, you might want to finish watching Witness. But if you're just here for good films, I mean, it's still a good film, but if you really like that adrenaline, heart pumping, woo, heavy pacing, it's the beginning of Witness for me. But it's a good movie. You can finish it. I'm just saying that first act is everything. Like, especially like if you like fast pacing films. Like if you're here because you like fast pacing films, then Seven is your movie. And Minority Report was so fast paced, I could not keep up. Like I kept going back and trying to hear what he said again. And these are not short movies. So here I am in a 2.5 hour movie going back, trying to hear what they said, going back, trying to hear what they said, going back, trying to hear what they said on the same lines. Rain Man was like probably the best feeling movie, because it was like the character, So I'm definitely kind of spoiling it here, but we've been doing that all day. It's like the main character does not get what he wants, but from that opening scene, you don't want him to get what he wants. And it takes a very long time for you to want him to get what he wants. And even then, you're like, is this feasible? So when he doesn't get what he wants, it's like not that big of a deal. But the journey, the experience that he's had is the movie. Like, it's changing him, it's shaped him, it's giving him a lifetime of lessons and only a couple of weeks on the road, I think. And that, you know, is similar to Road to Perdition in that the young man in that movie, at the end of the movie, he says that he grew up on a couple weeks on the road with his father. Like, he lived a lifetime, he said, in those couple of weeks. And people assumed he just grew up on a farm, but had they known what it took to get him to being able to grow up on a farm, they would realize that he lived a whole life before that. Like, just such dope writing. There was a lot of narrating in these movies in general, but none of it was like heavy over the top doing the whole movie except for what was it? It wasn't bad either because of course they know who to make do it. So obviously Morgan Freeman was the narrator and he was in 2 of our movies. So it was dang it, I keep talking about it. $1 Million Baby. In $1 Million Baby, that was the movie that I think had the most narration. But they did, that tool was used a lot throughout these movies. Either just in the opening and close is what most of the movies did. But I can't remember The Big Chill. I don't think The Big Chill had a narrator. I was just not feeling that movie, and I'm so sorry because I know somebody somewhere is like, that is my favorite movie. It's a feel-good movie. It's not because it's sad, but like it opens with the sadness, and then it's like people trying to find their bond through that. Like, you know what I mean? So also another cute character though. They open with like the most adorable little boy singing Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog. So I'm like, that was cute, but you know, they just kind of lost me after that. Like, it was almost like the movie just kind of went meh after that, and it had like a lot of young, like a lot of actors when they were young, so that was kind of cool. And even the 2 movies that I didn't like the most had that. Like, there was Diner and The Big Chill both had famous faces back when they were much younger, and somebody, those are their favorite movies, but it ain't me. And I will say there are a lot of famous faces who are more famous afterward in $1 Million Baby. Like, I don't know how many movies. Maybe Anthony Mackie probably did a lot of movies before that. I don't know, because he has done a lot of movies in general. But he was really young in that movie, as was I don't know her name from Garfunkel and Oates, and that might not even be her in this movie, but the sister of our main character in that movie, Makushla's little sister. What is her name in the movie? I don't know. She's Makushla. I don't know her name. Do they say her name? They have to say her name, right? They said it. I just don't remember. So many names, so many movies. This was a lot of fun, honestly. I wish I would have been able to spread it out even more, so I could take more time to think about it and talk each movie, but I don't want to just make one video about one movie either. So even though I love doing that with books, so maybe there will be more of that. I didn't do a lot of planning because in the past when I wanted to do like book review videos, I would literally like write an entire book report and then be like, I don't want to film this whole thing, so I have to now cut it down. So I find that it's better if I just turn the camera on and do it. At least the video will get out, even if my points don't get made like I want. So I'm not sure what's better. I'll probably try some different things in the future, but I do thank you for watching this video, and I can't wait to see what else we do. So tell me how you enjoyed this video so I know what to do more of, what to do less of. Thanks for watching in general. Definitely like if you made it to the end. Subscribe if you want to see more of me in general. Hit the notification bell. hit the notification bell if you don't care what I'm doing. You just want to come back and see this face droning on and on while you live your best life. We're both living our best life, I hope, because that's my point of doing this, is to, you know, get to best life and then have documented footage of how we got there. So that's my goal. I hope you join me in that journey so we can do it together. Or if you're seeing this way in the future and I made it, which of course I have, if I'm still doing this, then yeah, just go watch some more of my videos and see what else I did to get there. I don't know. But I hope you have a great day. Peace. Okay.